Well, guys, it's Wednesday, March 5th in America. I think it's Wednesday, March 5th in other countries as well. That's not true. I guess in Australia, it's probably Thursday, March 6th. I don't think there's anywhere where it's still Tuesday, March um, 4th, but we're here. It's Wisecrack Live. Michael Burns here with the producer Henry, here to talk about every single thing that's happened since we were last together with a rigorous objectivity that is scientifically and sociologically informed, such that everything said on the show you can take to be verifiably 100% true without any fact checking on your end. So let's start with 5G. Today we're going to talk about protest, resistance, things of that nature. Both a general topic I think many folks have been thinking about for a while as we look at various aspects of both domestic and global politics and the way in which people try to resist or, will some type of social political change. And of course, more in particular, we want to talk about yesterday's congressional address by El Presidente Trump.
That's right.
Which
Was it the State of the Union, or was there
it was
something about
not.
the
It was
naming?
not
Okay.
the State of the Union, guys. The State of the Union, here's what I've learned. The first time around, it's just an address to Congress because the president hasn't really done anything yet. The State of the Union is like after a year of doing stuff. So it was officially not a State of the Union. Any media source or person you trust online who called it that, you should immediately disregard. And I'm noting in the chat, Eric wants some homies to join him for Pokemon Go, so get involved in that. But nice to see everyone in the chat hanging out. Christopher Maverick got that shingle shot. You got to get that shingle shot. I know some people who got that shingles, and they seem like they're not happy. I will say as well that we're not going to talk about the content of Subcomandante Trump's address to Congress because I didn't watch it. While it was airing last night, I was watching the Sly Stone documentary it's on Hulu, directed by Questlove. I think it's called like Sly Stone and the Weight of Black Genius or something like that. So yeah, joint address to Congress. So I didn't watch it. I don't think you should. If some of you watched it, Bernie Sanders called it a State of the Union. He's done. He's done. Cooked. Bernie Sanders is done. Canceled. Long Porks in Canada, every time Long Pork comments, though, we have to pay a 20% tariff. So I would just say, Long Pork, please be careful with how much you comment today. If you are in Canada, Mexico, or China, Henry and I will be tariffed when you comment. So there you go. Logan Reese celebrating Mardi Gras.
Nice.
Shouts to all the Ash Wednesday homies. Maybe there's ashes under him, maybe there's not. I don't know. But it's fun. It's fun to give up stuff. It's fun to do that. Truly Evil Teesler sent Wisecrack an email. Don't read it on stream. Don't worry. Logan, I love Abita. Abita beer is good. I need an Abita. So we'll talk about some of this resistance stuff, types of protest
Mav
people
watched
were
it.
doing. Mav would. He's really on top of things. At least that's how I think of Mav, as someone who's very on top of things. He watched the address. He got a shingle shot. Probably exercised or something like that. So, and Henry, you did not watch
So I didn't watch it.
Monsieur Trump, right?
I didn't watch it live because we were doing Show Me the Meaning last night. But afterwards, I threw it on, and my roommate was playing the RoboCop video game on the PS5. So just watching RoboCop happening as Trump was spouting off his sins, I felt was the best way to ingest that. But I was falling asleep in and out. The only thing I really have to comment about it is, I mean, we know it's all horseshit as is, but so I was drifting off while he was rambling about women's sports, and it was all blatant transphobia. I kind of nodded off into the nap zone. I came back up maybe 20, 30 minutes later, and it's still going. And it sounds like he's talking about something different, but then he starts talking about the trans panic shit again, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, why is he back at this? I nod back off. Maybe 30, 40 minutes later, I wake back up. Again, he is talking about protecting women in sports and women's bathrooms, and it's just like, why do we keep going back to this? Like, why are the most annoying and anxious men who are scared of trans people given this loud ass voice in the room? And I mean, at this
I would,
point, I'm
yeah.
just like, to kind of comment on the kind of like what we're going to be exploring today. I get that Trump has no clothes, and you can't just tell him the emperor has no clothes because he'll just be like, "Yeah, dog, I'm naked as fuck." But I mean, the people pointing cameras towards this, and like the people like proxy to this, who can be all like, "Hey, you're full of shit." Like, why aren't they saying, "Hey, you're full of shit"?
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff reminds me of why I think a good thing to do is sometimes not know things. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes dumb stuff happens in social and political and cultural life that's better to not know a lot about. Because, like with the transport stuff, right? Here's what I know. I know there's a lady named Riley who wasn't very good at swimming. She was good enough to like make the team, but she wasn't like placing high anyways. And she was in some swim meet where a trans woman beat her, but it's not like she was like in contention anyways. And now her whole life is dedicated to transphobia, kicking trans women out of sports because that's what she blames her lack of excellence on. Now, this Riley person, I know that they weren't good enough. They didn't win NCAA meets. They didn't qualify for the Olympics, right? They're just a little baby who was so mad that someone beat them that they blamed someone else. So I want to get into the reaction to Trump's speech, right? So a lot of people on the Democratic side of things in America, we have two political parties. There's the Republican Party and there's the Democratic Republicans or the Republican Democrat. They're both kind of the same, but um, the Democratic Party, these are the people who have said things to us like fascism is coming, democracy is over, this guy is like Hitler, things are so bad. They painted a really dire picture as if some of what's happening now is truly life or death. And relative to that, their response to the life and death, fascistic, anti-democratic, Hitlerian situation that America finds itself in is they had little sign they made they had they had these little circle paper signs with words on them, and some of them wore different colors, and some wore T-shirts with words on them.
Um,
So they basically did the same thing that really overexcited high school juniors would do at a basketball game if it was regionals versus another high school you didn't like. You might also wear shirts with words on them and have signs with little words and stuff. That's what happened, and they did it. They won, and democracy's back, baby. So
yeah.
that's good.
I thought at one point I was going crazy with how long it felt like it was going. I was like, I thought this thing was only supposed to be like an hour long. It apparently was. I think it was like one of the longest, if not the longest in history, like presidential addresses to the congressional body. Um, yeah, you can hold up a sign that says you're a bad man. He's still gonna keep talking, and you're going to give him the platform to just like set something unprecedented down.
Yeah, I want to say Supernatural Awesome One in the chat said, no sympathy or understanding for the average American. Unsubscribed. Peace out. I don't really know where my lack of sympathy was or understanding there. I would say I'm going to be defensive for a second. Welcome to Defensive Corner, sponsored by Lockheed Martin. If you want to be defensive, use Lockheed Martin missiles and weapons. They'll defend the shit out of you and they'll kill kids. But in my defensive moment, again sponsored by Lockheed Martin, um, I'm actually really annoyed for the average American because I think the congressional people are not average Americans. I think they're pretty well-off, privileged individuals who respond to quite serious stakes for a lot of average Americans with their silly little signs. So I don't know. That's supernatural awesome. You're gone anyways. I'm speaking to a ghost, supernaturally not existing right now. Um, But that's what I would think. And we'll talk about the Al Green thing too. Al Green, who stood up and said, "Hey, Trump, let's stay together." I'm just kidding. Different Al Green. So let's start by looking at. I had it right here. We'll start with the. Hmm. We'll start with the Guardian article. Let's do that. Yeah. Only because I like the headline, which is "Somebody slap me and wake me up." I say that most nights. Democrats react to Trump's speech, sign waving in the chamber, and a fiery outburst was followed by more forceful statements after the speech. And just to be clear, we're going to start. We're going to start with maybe some more neutral news coverage of this, and we're going to slide our way into more aggressive coverage. Democrats panned Donald Trump's first primetime speech to Congress since return to the White House as reaction to the address revealed a country still deeply split on political lines and an opposition party unsure of how to deal with this radical agenda. Are they an opposition party? You know, what does the word opposition mean? No, I'm not going to look it up. But, you know, the Democrats' exclusion from the corridors of power, Democrats are in the minority everywhere, has left them with limited options on how to effectively respond to Trump's hardline 1 hour and 40-minute oration. That's like the same time of the documentary I watched, and it was way better. Sly Stallone, guys. Good doc. That amounted to a celebration of his achievements. Some of the party's rising stars, including Chris Murphy, a vocal senator from Connecticut, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the progressive representative from Nueva York, protested by staying away. I'll say this right off the bat. I think not being there, and you could roast me for this, we could talk about it. I think not being there is better than being there with a silly t-shirt. That's one of my first things I will say. I think that sometimes, you know, there's a way to delegitimize by not even paying attention. And also, I think that's something that would probably piss off Trump more because Trump and co feed off of like Libby reactions. But yeah, so I'll say that when we talk more about it later. Those who attended showed their displeasure. I think that's the word choices here is great. They showed their displeasure. You know, when I think of displeasure, you go to a wedding and the speeches are too long. I'm displeased that the speeches are too long. Or I ordered the fish at the wedding, but they're out of the fish, so I have to get the chicken, and it's like a dry chicken breast with like a lukewarm cream sauce on top. I'm displeased at my meal at the wedding, but I'm not like resisting. I'm not protesting. I'm not enraged. And I do think what we saw was wedding banquet style displeasure by turning their backs on Trump as he spoke and holding up placards with messages like "No Kings," "Save Medicaid," and this one makes me want to eat my own shit. "Musk steals." Wow. Who cares? Musk steals. You got him. You got him. You just shooter. You got him right there. You know, you early 2000s Mark Wahlberg to them. Like, in reference to the leading government cost-cutting role being played by the billionaire tech entrepreneur. The protest was disparagingly compared to bingo signs by one normally sympathetic commentator, Simone Sanders Townsend. Yeah, and like, Simone Sanders isn't, I think they spelled their name wrong in the story, is not a radical figure. This is a Democratic operative who works on MSNBC. Why are Democrats just sitting there? The signs are not landing. It is giving bingo. Sigh, she posted. The audience of silent, grim-faced Democrats, some of them holding Ukrainian flags, wearing garments in the country's color, provided Trump with a perfect prop to troll them. Okay, this article is actually more in it to win it than I thought. Because, yeah, a lot of this stuff, like, the thing is, if you're dealing with a bully in life, a lot of times the way people might want to react to the bully are ways where the bully is just going to roast you. You know, like if you were in middle school and you're getting bullied and your bully came up to you and you opened your shirt and you had a t-shirt that said, "I am strong." And you were like, "You're not going to bully me today, Colin. I am strong." Colin's going to roast the fuck out of you and bully you even worse. You know what I mean? You know how you're going to get back at that bully? You either A, ignore the bully because that destabilizes the bully, because when you don't act afraid of the bully and you act like you don't give a shit, the bully doesn't know what to do because they feed off fear. Or two, you punch the bully in the mouth. If there's a third option, let me know. But Colin the bully does not care about your signs and your t-shirts. Trump said, I look at the Democrats in front of me, realize there's absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy. Make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. These people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly not cheer for these astronomical achievements. But Democrat displeasure was not all passive. Some members shouted, January 6th, in reference to the 2021. Oh, yeah, because I know that he said that if you kill a cop, you get the death penalty. And I think some people were like, wasn't there people that killed cops January 6th and you just let them out of jail? That's a thing, right? That's a thing. I think that's a thing that January 6th. Yeah.
That happened,
Um,
yes.
yeah. What's up in the chat, everyone? Hope you're doing good. Someone said you get favor ads in SoCal. Login Pork said Colin's gonna bury you in a dumpster. Login Pork, that was a comment. That was a chat message worth paying the tariffs for. Tariffs? Tariffs? Tariffs?
I
Big
thought
Dog
it was
said, why are you
tariffs.
tariffs? Because they're terrific. Oh shit, Chase is from Iran. You know, you're scared about the direction the world's heading. Right-wing movements are everywhere and people seem to love it. Yeah, it sucks. Also, I don't endorse violence as well. I am just saying, like, if you're in 8th grade, you maybe should punch Colin in the mouth. That's all I'm saying. As an adult, clearly the punching in the mouth, I would be referring to or recommending that the Democrats do is like a proverbial punching in the mouth, a metaphorical punching in the mouth. Okay? We don't endorse violence. The most assertive act of resistance came from Al Green, member of Congress from Texas. Do you know what region of Texas he represents, Henry, as our Texas correspondent? He's not your guy, right?
No, I don't believe so. I actually don't know. Texas is a big
Oh, no
state.
worries. This is a big. You guys are your own little nation, your own large nation. So he was escorted from the chamber on the order of the House Speaker after loudly heckling Trump and telling him he had no mandate. Yeah, like he stood up and he talked shit, and he waved his cane. I think that's cool. I don't know if I think it's the the be all end all, but it was something. And he was willing to get kicked out. This is how I want to use a word here that I know I shouldn't use. Maybe
He's
you
from
guys can tell me why it's.
Houston.
What did you say?
He's from
Oh, from
Houston. I was
Houston.
looking
That
into
makes
it. Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. Houston's like a place that seems a little more in general liberal leaning. Lots of other parts of Texas. But like, well, okay. What is the word? What is the appropriate word to use when my problematic 40-year-old brain wants to say PUSSY? When I want to call someone that, what is a non-problematic synonym
That's tough.
for?
I wonder this too.
Yeah, if anyone has thoughts, please let me know. Again, it's a situation where I'm self-admittedly problematic because of the era in which I grew up and the language I used. I'm at least aware. Wimp, wuss, coward, fanny. Okay, weak, spineless, lappin, wuss, fly over, hick, coward. Spineless is good. Some of these
Yeah,
aren't, because I
spineless.
will say the problem. The thing about the P word is there's a forcefulness to it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
when you
there's
say
the
it,
hard
you're like,
P and then the double S.
oh. It has this force of like you, me. Whereas like, see, I think I appreciate what you guys are doing, but I almost think that this is showing me why I think the P word has a special place in the language. But here's all I say. Here's all I say. Hello, I'm a native English speaker. I think that most of the people, the Democrats in Congress, are that word. Whatever word we want to say, they're that. They are that. Because they're not even willing to get kindly escorted out, right? Because Al Green, who stood up and talked some shit, it's not like he had to go to jail or something. Someone just came over and was like, "Hey man, you got to get out of here." And he was like, "Okay." And he walked out. I've been kicked out of places before. Let us know if you've been kicked out of places in the chat. I think I've been kicked out of 2 places in my life. 3 places in my life I've been kicked out of. You know, if we get
Yeah,
to next time we get to 888, remind me, and I could have those be secret. That one
guys,
accountant
if
says feckless.
yeah, if you've ever been kicked out of a place, you're probably more courageous than a current sitting congressperson.
Yeah.
Um,
Afterwards, Green. Oh, go ahead.
I was just this is bringing to mind just a small tangent. There's a book by Joanne Freeman. It's a nonfiction book called The Field of Blood: Violence in Congress and the Road to Civil War, and it's about the
Ooh.
history of like actual violence on the congressional floor. Worth reading to just get some perspective on how little our current representatives are doing by comparison.
Yeah. Um, so this is afterwards. Green, who's preparing articles of impeachment, told reporters that his expulsion was worth it to let people know there's some people going to stand up. A more measured Democratic reaction came from Alyssa Slotkin, senator and former CIA or FBI from Michigan. Yeah, former CIA, said Reagan would be rolling in his grave. Like, so that's what the Democrats have. They have a CIA agent who comes on screen and says Ronald Reagan would be upset. That's what you got. It's the best. That's the best you got. This makes me think of the document that came out with all these recommendations for the Democrats. I think I'm going to talk with Kat about this. I'm going on Kat Abu's stream tomorrow,
Awesome.
12:30 Pacific, 2:30 Central, 3:30 East Coast. If you guys haven't been watching Kat's stream, check it out. I think we're talking about that. So I'll be curious to hear what she thinks about that. Yeah, she said we might watch this later, by the way, so we won't get into it too much. We all want an end to the war in Ukraine, but Reagan understood, and she, as a Cold War kid, hang me out to dry, many times. 4 of you got that. I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office. Jesus Christ. The moment you start thinking Ronald friggin' Reagan, Jesus, that's like being at Subway and being like, when Jared was involved in Subway, I thank God Jared was there for us in the early 2000s and not Trump. Yeah, she said a bunch of stuff. I don't know. Jasmine Crockett, a Democratic. I'm skipping to the end of this thing. A Democratic member of Congress from Texas. She's saying stuff too. Shouts to Texas. Had earthier language. I love that earthier language. While promising to take the fight to Trump, whom she called really psychotic for his stated desire during his speech to take over Greenland. Why are we fighting with Greenland? She asked Adam Mockler, the progressive media Midas Touch Network. We're fighting with Canada. We're fighting Mexico. Yet we're in love with Putin. What's happened? It's not America. This is a terrible nightmare. Somebody slap me and wake me the fuck up because I'm ready to get on with it. I like that language better than I wish Ronald Reagan was inside of me right now.
Just saying, there's red state Democrats that are fighting way harder than blue state ones.
Yeah. And for anyone who's like, listen, I'm not tuning into this channel for your analysis of events. We want to talk about, I would say, and I'm saying this genuinely, not facetiously, some of the, I don't know, I guess like theoretical or philosophical underpinnings of resistance and why maybe we're not seeing the level of resistance that we'd want to see right now. So we are going to talk about that. In the meantime, thanks for being here. Also, new videos coming out this week. We didn't have a video last week. We have a video coming out this week on oligarchy and some other stuff. Let's see. Okay.
A lot of Crockett love in the chat. I like to see it.
Yeah, she seems cool. Again, I don't know anything, but I know she seems cool. Let's look at this tweet real quick from Maxwell Alejandro Frost. So Maxwell Frost, the youngest congressperson from Orlando, Florida. Part of me has a slight soft spot for this guy as someone who grew up in the Orlando area. But there's some irony. Let's look at this guy's post. He said, "We just walked out of the State of the Union. My shirt showed Trump an important message." Trump didn't see your shirt, dog. He's 80 years old. Do you think he can see that far? And it said, "No kings live here." In the spirit of student protesters from the civil rights movement, I'm proud to have protested and walked out with many of my colleagues. This is not a normal time. Oh, it's not normal? Thanks for letting us know. Few things here. One, I know at least one person in this picture has been actively against student protesters on college campuses um, protesting against the ongoing genocide against Gaza. People in this picture who are saying, in the spirit of student protesters, what were the student protesters going after during the civil rights movement? I don't know, an implicit apartheid state in which one group of people had dominant power over the other and didn't let them live equally and didn't give them equal rights and treated their bodies like objects to be killed, destroyed, mutilated, and abused. That's a thing. You know, they went on to protest against the Vietnam War, right? An issue of weird, unconstrained colonial power, just moseying about someplace, killing kids for no reason. You know, that's your thing. I mean, and you know, I did this video about Trump and postmodernism I put out on Monday, and some folks, and this always happens, it's not a big deal, or like, well, you talk about the Democrats. I mean, yeah, they do the same shit. Like it's a complete disconnect from history to act as if wearing your little t-shirts and walking out of the meeting is necessary like that. I think is Crockett in this picture? I don't want to do an accidental bad by I feel like she might be in this, but I'm not sure. And yeah, am I? You all know that I'm worried about right now. I don't want to do a bad thing. I don't want to say it's someone who's not there. I know the lady in the back with the gray hair is the one who said that we have to fuck Trump. That's a real thing. I'm not making that up. But and you know, people have pointed out that Frost, especially, who's been pretty anti-student protest now, is kind of up his own a-hole right there. But you know, this leads to the question of sort of like what is yeah, people are getting this in the chat. Wait, Michael Hassler says, why do you not cover James Burnham? Curtis Yarvin, key influence. I mean, dog, I can't always read everything you want me to read, and I did read a lot in Yarvin, and I read a lot of Yarvin, and I'll just say that's not like what he came up. Ooh, Matt, I didn't see Mav's comment. I'm gonna scroll back. Eric, thank you so much. Scrolling back to find that Mav business. Oh my god, I bet it's a good comment too. Sorry guys, I'm scrolling back. I'm scrolling. It might get to the point where I just say, Mav, resend it. Mav, resend it. I think I'm officially gonna say resend it, Mav. And now I'm gonna keep the chat up so I'll see it when it comes back in. And in the meantime, let's see. I will talk. So, Old Grace is here. We can start now. Good. This has all been fake. Someone said stop bashing the Dems. They're trying their best. No, they're not. But to act as if what they're doing has a direct connection to it's on Blue Sky. Duh. I'll check it out over there. But you know, to act as if what they're doing has a direct connection to the students' right, civil rights protests, I think is bordering on offensive. You know, because if you look at the civil rights movement, like the Clyburn thing, okay, yeah. If you look at the civil rights movement, like people like truly put their bodies and themselves on the line. That is a real thing. Oh, the sit-in to show Trump, yeah. Let me see some real quick. I'll look that up later. Let's look at this New Republic piece. Democrats torched for their weak protest at Trump speech. And let's say you're watching this right now, you're hanging out, and you're just thinking like, hey, easy for you to say, guy that's just sitting in a room talking to people on the internet. Sure, totally true. Also, I wasn't elected though. You know, I didn't spend millions of dollars to convince, in most cases, tens if not hundreds of thousands of people that I had their best interest in mind. I didn't campaign on fighting Trump and fascism. I didn't do any of that. You know, I didn't do that. And these people did, you know, and when they are going to compare themselves to any sort of historical resistance or protest movement, and when they're going to sort of use the language of the civil rights movement and student protest, they're talking about people who risked a lot. Like if you look at protest movements in the 60s and 70s, people, including politicians and clergy and all types of people, were getting the shit beat out of them. Some people got killed. People went to jail for refusing to go to war. Shit was happening. So I'm just saying there is an historical precedent here. But even if there's not a direct historical precedent for the situation that you're in, I don't know, maybe just put yourself out there a little bit. Even cynically, right? Even cynically, it's going to give you more attention. So this New Republic piece shows some of the same folks we saw before. Yeah, I find Maxwell Frost kind of annoying. I'm just going to say it.
Crockett was part of the walkout. Just
Okay.
Yeah, noted.
Yeah, you know what just happened? Let's be honest, guys. We know what happened psychologically. Michael, the old white guy, was really afraid that he was going to say another black woman was Jasmine Crockett, and it wasn't. And then it was going to be like, Jesus Christ, Michael, Jesus Christ. And I got really in my head about that. That's just what happened. Some of you knew that. Some of you saw me say that, and you were like, I know what he's doing right there. That's what happened. What am I going to do? Not be honest with you? I'm going to act like I'm just, we're doing honesty today. This says non-MAGA Americans have been clamoring for legitimate resistance to Donald Trump and Elon Musk's haphazard dismantling of the federal government. So when Democrats appeared before the president's speech to a joint session of Congress Tuesday night wearing fuchsia, great language choice, the fuchsia protest, and waving auction paddles in a mode of protest, the public was a little disappointed. The Simone Sanders thing we already saw. But the visuals.
The other article did misspell her name.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder, part of me thinks that we're seeing more misspellings in news sources because A, they don't have staff anymore, and B, I wonder how much of the shit they're doing is like, AI edited and stuff like that. Because that's the world we live in, and it sucks. Says the visuals were hardly there. Viewers watching live at home would never have known the Democrats were. Yeah, because that's the thing too. Like, you only knew this if you were on fucking X, the everything app, looking at pictures. And I think the only instance in which, if you were watching at home, you probably were aware something was up is when Al Green got up, because then they had to be like, get him out of here.
Correct.
Let's see. Or that a handful of them stood up and walked out. Yeah, like, again, like, even if you walked out in silence, like, who cares? It's symbolic. You know what's not symbolic? It's not symbolic that, we just have straight up, like, formalized legal transphobia in this country. You know what's not symbolic? That new policies in the Department of Education are literally going to mean that students' lives get ruined for standing up for what's right. That's like a real thing that's happening. The economy is effing tanking, baby. It's not terrifying, it's tanking. There's a lot of like real stuff that's happening as actual material consequences for people. They don't need a symbolic protest. They need a physical material. They need something that makes them feel like the people that they elect to represent them are doing something. And this sort of like, we're just going to sit by and do nothing thing sucks. And a letter issued Monday, House Minority Leader, dead card. Maybe the lesson should be, let our moderate representatives be the carrot while the rest of us are the stick. Let the bastards know their options. Yeah. Docile, servile filth for P-word synonym. That gets the vibe, but it's long. Joshua Hardman bringing up a really good Andor quote. I'm so excited for season 2 of that. I would love to do a 3-6 Mafia prayer. Joshua says, Joshua quoting Andor says, I burn my decency for someone else's future. Yeah, that's the thing too. Oh, we are at 666. Yay. We did it. Satan and stuff. I think, there you go. Eric says, what are you talking about? They wore shirts. People are talking about Luigi. I love the Mario video games too and think that they're good.
Yeah.
But going back to the Andor quote that Joshua brought up, like, that's the problem, is that if you look at past historical protest movements and revolutionary movements, a key feature of them is that people who participate in them are not doing what they're doing for themselves. They are doing what they are doing for other people, both existing and people who do not yet exist. They are doing what they are doing for a collective good that they are aware might not even directly benefit them. A philosopher I like, who I've talked about a bunch, Alain Badiou, French philosopher, Alain Badiou. I only say that because whenever I mention him on stream, people will be like, what the fuck is that French name? He talks about becoming immortal in his books. Now, he doesn't mean you can become like a daywalker or anything like that. His point is that when we participate in collective truths, whether they be political, artistic, amorous, or scientific, we participate in something that is bigger than ourselves. And we live for something that exceeds our own isolated subjectivity. And I'm kind of, editorializing here, is I think that a lot of people and a lot of our represented leaders don't want to do anything that might not directly benefit them. And they do not want to do anything that might make their life, their individual life, more difficult, even if the making of their individual life more difficult did something to create a better world for those to come. I find this especially cowardly, for those in the government who have children. I think even if you don't have children, like, you can still want to build a better future because you're a goddamn human. But, to know that you have brought human lives into the world and you are in a position to have an outsized influence on where that world could go, to do nothing is very embarrassing. So, I think, and again, like, the whole point of a revolutionary collective subjectivity is, again, that it's not about you, it's a part of the thing, the people, the whole. Let's get back to this article. And a letter issued Monday, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who's a tough hang, urged his party to make a strong and dignified presence. Why do you have to be dignified? Starting in 2016, Trump and the contingent around him threw dignity out the fucking window and haven't brought it back. And you know what they do? They win and they wield power. Just saying. During the address, a large correction of Democratic women on the left side were seen wearing pink. I mean, honestly, I'm shocked that Trump didn't see them wearing pink and just say something like, beautiful ladies wearing pink, good color. Back in the 80s, a girl wore pink and you knew she was loose. She was loose. I love him, though. I love him. He could have just done that. While men wore blue and yellow ties in opposition to Trump's agenda. Democratic leadership didn't do them any favors by stifling their desire to speak out. That's the thing. Like, even if we're going to say, even if you're like, what should they do? Should they, wait, why am I not remembering the name of the movie right now? Paul Schrader film, Ethan Hawke, First Reformed. I'm not saying they should go full First Reformed. If you don't know what that means, I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want to get banned. You can look up the plot of that movie. You could watch that movie. It's a good movie, and I think it's an incredibly relevant film. But you could just disrupt. Like, they could all get up and just scream shit or bring in air horns or throw feces. That one's a little extreme. And just disrupt things. Like, don't let shit. If you're going to hold a real sign that says this isn't normal. Well, if it's not normal, disrupt the shit. If it's not normal, put a stick in the spokes of this wheel and stop things. Make it very difficult for them to govern and hold on to power. Put them in a position where they are going to have to do something. Maybe that means they have like Capitol Police come in and beat the shit out of Congress people. Okay. I think maybe that would be good. Maybe that's a good thing to have on our TV screens. Maybe that's a good thing to have people seeing. And maybe if it means you get knocked around a little bit, you take one for the team. Now you might be saying, again, Michael, you little bitch, what have you ever done? Well, true story. I got arrested by Capitol Police when I was 20 years old. Got tossed around a little bit. Got cuffed up. Got thrown on a bus. Got knocked around. And you know what? It was fine. And you know why it was fine? Because, let's be real with it, I was a middle-class, 20-year-old, sweet-looking white boy. And because of that, I was able to use some of the social capital and privilege that I had, knowing that the cops weren't going to kill me, to put my body in harm's way to stand up for something bigger than myself. For those who wonder what I was protesting on the side of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting. No, I'm kidding. Um, but all I'd say is like they're probably not going to kill a congressperson on live TV. Probably not going to shoot you. So your worst case scenario is you're going to get knocked around a little bit. If you're let's say Maxwell Frost, dude's like 27 years old, looks like he's in great cardiovascular health. Seems like he hits the gym. What are they going to do? That's all I'm saying. Meanwhile, the meaningless show became instant fodder for late night comedians. He barked out one appalling claim after another, but don't you worry. Democrats are getting ready to fight back with their little paddles, said Stephen Colbert. They really are just like parodies of themselves. This is how you save democracy, by quietly dissenting or bidding on an antique tea set. It was hard to tell what was going on. Colbert then brought out his own paddle, which urged Democrats to try something different. They bring up the Al Green thing there. Thank God. Here's the thing. I'm very confident that that certain elements of the Democratic Party leadership reached out to like Al Green's people to be like, hey, that was too much. I would bet my friggin' life that something like that happened.
Not dignified enough.
Dustin Driver, I would say the impression's like not too bad. My impression's solid. The problem with impressions is I get in my head, then it could go south. Royal Knight said, Michael, question, were you worried about job prospects when you're getting arrested? Because that's what stops me trying. No, I think that's really valid. So I knew that the thing I was going to get charged for, it's blocking the entrance to a federal building. It's called incommoding. And I was aware going into it that it's like whatever level of charge is like you pay a little fine, and they held me for like 13 hours or something like that. And it doesn't harm your record. But I will say this, as a 20-year-old who at the time was interning at a nonprofit that did like kind of social justice oriented stuff, SJWDEI, I was very much kind of like, I don't know. I feel like if I'm trying to get work in the future with nonprofits that do work that's standing up for the rights of the poor and marginalized, I feel like that's not going to hurt me too much, I guess, But I do understand, and I understand that now. Like I, have had that thought. I don't now, because now I'm just an adult that makes YouTube videos and talks on the internet. But it's worth thinking about, and I definitely, like, if you are, responsible for a family, it is hard, and it is like putting something on the line to think about doing that, and I totally understand that. And I do think that's valid. Sean's back. Let's go. Bingo Bear says you can legally protest. You don't have to break the laws. I mean, this is the problem, Bingo Bear 18, is that at least on college campuses now, protesting is breaking the law. They are making protesting illegal. Illegal. Spelled ELL, eagle. Let's see. It was from Colbert again. Some people have questioned why so much muscle was needed to remove an old man with a cane, but it turns out it's for a serious reason. When security searched him, they found it. He had smuggled in a spine. Ooh. That does remind me, when I got arrested that one time, I only got arrested once. I'm not a big boy. I got held by police another time for doing jackass-style pranks in high school. That was not an act of socio-political honor. But when I did get arrested, I got arrested next to some nuns with canes. I might have told this story before. I've probably told the story before. That there was some left-wing nuns. They exist. Shouts to Isabella Rossellini. And one of the nuns had a cane, and I watched like this 25-year-old cop arrest her, and she was like, "Excuse me, son, would you mind cuffing me in the front so I could use my cane?" And I will say I saw something in that guy's eyes die, and I had just enough common sense in that moment, because what I wanted to say, I was a big loudmouth when I was younger. I wanted to be like, "Cool job, bud. Big tough boy, cuffing an 80-year-old nun. Real proud, real tough guy. Real Antonio Banderas has a child with Steven Seagal and does a three-way with Shaq when he was a police uniform guy. Oh, tough guy." But I didn't do that. The reference at the end there was that Shaquille O'Neal is a deputy sheriff in the state of Louisiana, I think, or maybe it's Florida. But Shaq became a cop. If Shaq's your favorite basketball player, I'm sorry, he's also a cop. So let's look at the response to this, the official response from the Democratic Party, from Elisa Eliza Slotkin, who is, just to be clear here, Slotkin, a former CIA agent. That's who they picked. And this tells you a lot. This is the party of people that many folks are looking at to like help them. And they put a CIA agent who wants to get some Reagan nut, metaphorically speaking. Metaphorically speaking, that's who they put in front to be like, this. She is the captain now. If you sense a little bit, oh, Seagal's a cop too. Seagal and Shaq are both cops. I forgot about that. Let's see. You know, sorry. And you know, if it seems like on these streams I'm starting to collapse a little bit, I'm collapsing a little bit. This is all just like tough. Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Look at what I don't want to get in trouble.
Say it.
Look at what video game character Luigi. I'm talking about the video game character from the video game. Look at what that guy did. Think about how much less of that you can do and how it would still be a lot. If that makes sense.
I was reading, wasn't there another incident involving a healthcare CEO that's gotten no coverage in relative comparison to Luigi's act?
I actually don't know what you're referring to. So if you want to talk about it, you can. But that's you and the FBI's problem, man.
Yeah, I think I'll need to do more research before talking with confidence. But we do have Slotkin at the ready.
Yeah, let's watch some Slotkin. Shouts to Michigan. I really want to move to Michigan. That's a real thing, by the way. I really want to move to Michigan. I was hoping I could do it soon. I might have to wait a couple of years. My current life dream. Everyone, you know, if you guys want to share your life dream in the chat, let's manifest. Let's be Gwyneth Paltrow types and manifest for a second. I want to move to a small town in Michigan and have like a back garage that I turn into a little studio space, where I can live cheaply and do stuff like this, like stream and make videos and work with other people I like. And then I could get a dog, and my kid and my dog could run around outside, and I could work in my little shed. That's really my dream in life. Some people might say, that's not a big dream. You know, you should want more. That's all I want. And I would say if I could go one level deeper with the dream, I'd like that small town to have a decent coffee shop where I could go to most days and say hi to people, place I could see movies, and one solid bar. That is my dream. I'm manifesting that. If you guys have a dream, share it. You know, ooh, Mez wants to go to Ireland and have chickens. That's sick. I have friends with that setup, says Suji. Yeah, I really want that. My only issue would be like getting good internet in small town Michigan. Economic boycotts, I have thoughts now we get into later. Whoa, Wonder Plaza is a skydiving instructor? That's sick. Prince Nutella wants to move to Singapore and be a robotics engineer. Ooh, Kurgenstein's Monster, 7 blocks from Lake Huron. That sounds nice in the summer. Tough in the winter. We got someone in Indiana out here. Treehouse on the coast of Maine. Sean, that's sick. That's like, I get that very much. Someone wants to own a house. Suja Das loves it in Michigan. Grand Rapids. Daniel, me and my wife got obsessed with Grand Rapids, but then we were looking it up and we're worried that it's like too Christian. You know? We're worried that it's like too like Protestant Christian, whatever. Shout out Detroit. Okay. Hound's a nice town. Walking distance of groceries. That sounds really nice. Full-time permaculture farming. A window installation in Michigan sounds crucial. I want to live someplace walkable. Clean water and food's always great. Edward Norton in The Italian Job. This is great. Bingo Bear said, what's stopping you? I currently... Ooh, a tent in the Scottish Highlands. That's sick. Ooh. Josh, that sounds rad. House in Oregon and a studio for film scoring. Wow. Yeah, it's extremely Christian. I'm here. I live here right now, and currently my job, the job I currently have, the company that I currently work for is based here, and And so that's a thing. Um, Also, not that I should speak on her, but I'm very proud of her. My wife got a 2-year teaching position at a university in California. Starts soon, so we'll have to see what happens in the 2 years. I'm very proud of her. She's a very good writer and a good teacher. At least one of us can still be teaching. Let's watch Slotkin.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak tonight. It's late, so I promise to be a lot shorter than what you just watched.
Got him.
Personally, if you've never heard of me, I'm the new senator from the great state of Michigan, where I grew up. I've been in public service my entire life.
Michigan does rip.
I
She's not
happened to
wrong.
be in New York City on 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down.
Damn, I did not expect her origin story to be 9/11. We're 21 seconds in, and she said, so I don't think she's from Michigan. And she just said, I do public service because of 9/11.
Before the smoke cleared, I knew I wanted to make a life in national security.
She was like, I saw 9/11 and I knew I wanted to be a global cop.
I was recruited by the CIA and did 3 tours in Iraq alongside the military. In between, I worked at the White House.
Guys, do you know what the CIA was doing in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan? Watch Zero Dark 30, guys. Shouts to Catherine Bigelow. Like the CIA, they were doing stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
Under President Bush and President Obama.
Oh, you worked with Bush. That's great.
2 very different leaders who both believed that America is exceptional.
Shout out Bush.
You can find that same sense of patriotism here in Wyandotte, Michigan, where I'm speaking from tonight. It's a working class town just south of Detroit. President Trump and I both won here in November. It might not seem like it, but plenty of places like this still exist across the United States. Places where people believe that if you work hard and play by the rules, you should do well and your kids should do better. It reminds me of how I grew up. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat, but it was never a big deal.
Guys, she's literally just fetishizing the late 80s and early 90s. We're well off.
It was never a big deal.
Yeah. Like, and I say this like, guys, I grew up in this. But by that, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest and then in Florida with parents and family members. And there were so many families like that. Like my family was like that. My fucking dad voted for Republicans. He died before Trump was the thing though, so he didn't vote for Trump. But you know, I had a family where it would be like the election where like dad voted for the Republican and mom voted for the Democrat and this uncle did this and this did that. But they just
because we had shared values that were bigger than any one party.
Just money. The economy was doing fine. That's all
we just went through another fraught election season. Americans made it clear that prices are too high and that the government needs to be more responsive to their needs. America wants change, but there's a responsible way to make change and a reckless way. And we can make that change without forgetting who we are as a country and as a democracy. So that's what I'm going to lay out tonight.
Lay it out, girl.
Because whether you're from Wyandotte or Wichita, most Americans share 3 core beliefs: that the middle class is the engine of our country.
Okay, let's go through these. The middle class. I mean, like, first of all, there isn't really a middle class anymore, you know? So I don't share that belief.
Right,
I share the belief that I believe that the working class provides the labor that is the back upon which wealth is built for other people. I believe that, right? I believe that working class Americans are unfairly compensated for the value that they create that others benefit off of. But the whole metric of middle class, like what middle class meant historically, was that people that worked in jobs that were like teachers or worked in the trades or, you know, worked in like, I don't know, an office. I don't know, but just like kind of like normally boring jobs that you could at least like buy a house, have a car, send your kids to college if you wanted, go on vacation once a year. Like that was like the metric of that. And all I will say is there's many cities in the United States of America where you could legit make low 6 figures and not do that stuff. So the whole notion that we have some broad middle class is insane. Like I am 40 years old. I know that with this dewy skin, I look 19, but I'm 40 years old and almost, I'm trying to think of this in my head. Almost none of my good friends own a home. I don't know if any of them do. I want to say their names out loud and list, but I don't want to do that to them. But almost no one I'm friends with owns homes. All of my good friends have college degrees. Most of them have like graduate degrees and have had good jobs and yet can't conceivably
Yep.
own a home. You're going to tell me that we have this great middle class? No. Let's get back to it.
In
That
the
strong national security
Oh, go ahead, Henry.
protects
just in the use of the language of the middle class too, it is ignoring, or there is the implication that, oh, there's a lower class who's undeserving of our attention, and we just can categorize and forget about a certain type of person that way.
100%. I'm so glad you brought that up, Henry. Yes, the implied thing is middle class good, and there's some poors that can eat a little bit of shit, just a little bit of shit. She's talking about why security is good.
us from harm, and that our democracy, no matter how messy, is unparalleled and worth fighting for.
Okay, American exceptionalism, guys. We're still buying this. It's 2025, and we're still buying 777. Dear Father, Son, and Holy Security State, we pray that you continue to shine your light on the exceptional city on the hill that is America. Everything about America is in the Bible. If you read the Bible, it describes America. Everything we do is holy and ordained. There is no nation on the world that is as good as this. Everything about this place is good. If you tell me that other countries have healthcare, you are a liar. If you tell me that other places have, better publicly funded culture and arts and education, you are a liar, and I hate you. If you can tell me that another country has better baked goods or wines, I will call you a liar. So in the name of, let's see, Ronald Reagan, Andrew Jackson, Thomas Jefferson, and Ronald McDonald. Amen. We can get back to it. Yeah. 777 prayers. 888 is secrets. No, that's like very true. Yeah, I saw someone wearing like Denmark and France. I think that's the thing. Like, you just can't act as if what we have is exceptional. There are other democratic nations in the world, and some that, because of the size of the nations, are way more representative. And you have nations that are both more democratic and that I think are more free. By more free, I don't mean that like more free to say the R slur, but nations in which you have access to transit, education, affordable housing, retirement, places where people get a month off or 6 weeks vacation a year. I'm just saying, like, this whole narrative's silly, and I just don't know. I don't know.
The economy.
Let's do it.
Michigan literally invented the middle class. The revolutionary idea that you could work at an auto plant and afford the car you were
But
building.
you can't anymore.
That's the American dream. And in order to expand and protect the middle class, we have to do a few basic things. We need to bring down the price of things we spend the most money on.
Is the American
Groceries,
dream a
housing,
reversion to
healthcare.
just like working at
We
the
need to make more
factory?
things.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing too. Like, I mean, it's fetishizing a time that I maybe wasn't as good as we think it is, and we're not going back there. So I think so much of, and this is probably the Democratic Party in general, at least the Slotkins and the Jeffries and stuff of that party, is they are fetishizing a past that is over. We are not going back there. We're not going back. It is no more. The old world is no more. So, God, I'm going to say something right now, guys, and I'm taking a flyer here. Tell me in the chat if this is completely off. Henry can tell me too. Could we argue that even though they're doing it in ways that are batshit insane, that at least elements of the Republican Party are embracing contemporary technologies and their effects on the economy rather than fetishizing a sort of type of labor from the past that's not coming back? You know what I'm saying?
They're like romanticizing like an active and participatory destruction of like the state in the now. Like there is a present kind of action and kind of like objective within their mind.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I would, you can offer a future vision that acknowledges what technology and labor look like in 2025 without just being like, hey, remember the good old days of Flint, Michigan? Back in the day. Dude, Drift King 305. I love what you're doing, but I just don't want you to get kicked out. We're not going to kick you out of the chat, Drift King. I'm just worried that like some Mr. YouTube's going to be like, okay, that's too much Luigi talk. We got to get this guy.
The whole
Um,
the whole romance of like the factory job thing's funny to me because as a kid growing up, I can think of so many like 80s and 90s kind of like sitcoms and movies that come out or like are within a sort of boomer nostalgia resentment romance sphere where the dad of the family is depicted as like being stuck in the factory and being kind of like traumatized or mean or like he
Yeah.
suffocated his artistic visions to pursue that and that being like a huge point of like I don't know. A lot of late '90s pop culture seemed to me to be like hugely about liberating yourself from that and getting a college education and like being a fulfilled individual beyond like the factory work of the hometown.
Yeah. Also, all those dads were drunks that hit their kids. Chris Maverick in the chat says it's a past that never existed. Even then, the middle class they imagine was never big. It was a myth in the 80s. That's why Reaganism failed. I'm not going to disagree with the doctor professor. I'm not a university academic. He is in a real city, a real working class, middle class city. I'm not going to say which one. We know where we know where Chris lives. It's a big city. You're not going to find him there. Is it doxing to say, Pittsburgh? Is that doxing? I don't know.
In America with good paying union jobs and bring our supply chains back home from places
Whenever they talk about unions, it's like,
like China.
I'm going to watch a little bit.
We need to give American
shut the
businesses
fuck
the
up.
certainty
I'm
they
gonna
need
shut
to
the
invest and
fuck
create the jobs of the future. And we need a tax system that's fair for people who don't happen to make $1 billion. Look, the president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So, do his plans actually help Americans get ahead? Not even close. President Trump is trying to deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends. He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to.
Okay, I'm just going to say this so people don't get mad at me. I agree with that point. What you just said, that a lot of the economic policies being proposed by Trump are really just attempts to give away stuff to
The
rich people.
wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going to make you pay in every part of your life. Grocery and home prices are going up, not down. And he hasn't laid out a credible plan to deal with
I'm going to do
either of
something
those.
crazy, guys, and I apologize
His
in
tariffs
advance.
on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and
I just 1.25.
cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers. Your premiums and prescriptions will cost more because the math on his proposals doesn't work without going after your health care. Meanwhile, for those keeping score, the national debt is going up, not down. And if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession. And one more thing. In order to pay for his plan, he could very well come after your retirement, the Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits you worked your whole life to earn. The president
That's true. That's
claims
true.
he won't, but Elon Musk just called Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time.
On Joe Rogan.
While we're on the subject of Elon Musk, is there anyone in America who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts?
Okay, I'm going to be fair. Bringing that up, not bad.
No oversight, no protections against cyber attack, no guardrails on what they do with your private data.
I wonder though if like the issue is because I think that right about Ellen DeGeneres Musk, but you probably do as well. But I guess a lot of people still say, no, we like it because they're taking down the bureaucracy, and I think you have to offer a counter to that. Like I feel like the Democratic attack doesn't need to just be like, Elon's a fucking freak. He is. He wears a bulletproof vest now, so he looks like a real thick boy. It's like the little buff boys sketch from I Think You Should Leave, except like the old, not buff man with his bulletproof vest because he has illusions of grandeur that someone's going to Luigi him. If only. But, I think that there needs to be a more direct response to not just like Elon's a freak, but why the reason you think this is good is maybe not good.
We need a more efficient. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it.
Oh, she'll help him.
But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe. The mindless firing of people who work to protect our nuclear weapons, keep our planes from crashing, and conduct the research that finds the cure for cancer, only to rehire them 2 days later, no CEO in America could do that without being summarily fired. Okay, so we've talked about economic security.
CEOs do crime
How
all the
about
time.
national security? Let's start with the border. As someone who spent my whole career protecting our homeland,
This is gonna get
every
bad.
country deserves to know who and what is coming across its border. Period. Democrats and Republicans should all be for that. But securing the border without actually fixing our broken immigration system is dealing with the symptom and not the disease. America is a nation of immigrants. We need a functional system keyed to the needs of our economy that allows vetted people to come and work here legally.
A certain type of person hears the nation of immigrants thing, right? And is their thing just like, well, certain immigrants. You know what I mean? We're a nation of certain immigrants.
Forward to the president's plan on.
Sorry that I did a Southern accent there. That's offensive. There's lots of, there's a history of like labor activism in the South, great writing and art in the South. And I think using a Southern accent to do that's bad. Next time I do something that's retrograde, I'm going to use a New York accent or a Boston accent.
Because here's the thing. Today's world is deeply interconnected. Migration, cyber threats, AI, environmental destruction, terrorism. One nation.
Environmental destruction? What if your party did something about that?
Cannot face these issues alone. We need friends in all corners, and our safety depends on it. President Trump loves to say peace through strength. That's actually a line he stole from Ronald Reagan.
Oh, is this the part? Are we getting to the good stuff?
But let me tell you, after the spectacle that just took place in the Oval Office last week, Reagan must be rolling in his grave. We all want an end to the war in Ukraine, but Reagan...
You know, to quote Killer Mike, I won't. Do you guys know Killer Mike's song about Ronald Reagan? Does anyone know the song I'm talking about? Killer Mike has a song about Ronald Reagan. I would just say listen to Killer Mike's song about Ronald Reagan.
Understood that...
I think it's from the album Rap Music. It's like R.A.P music.
True strength required America to combine our military and economic might.
He says that he's glad Reagan's dead.
And that scene in the Oval Office wasn't just a bad episode of reality TV. It summed up Trump's whole approach to the world. He believes in cozying up to dictators like Vladimir Putin and kicking our friends like the Canadians in the teeth. He sees American leadership as merely a series of real estate transactions. As a Cold War kid, I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump. And
That's such a funny phrase.
We have the Louisiana Purchase in our curriculum. Like we're a real estate company. Yes.
Hold on. How old is she? She's 8 years older than me, and she's defining her entire existence as being like this Cold War childhood. Also, do these people not know the Cold War Kids was a band? They were a pretty popular band.
Office in the 1980s, Trump would have lost us the Cold War. Donald Trump's actions suggest that in his heart, he doesn't believe we're an exceptional nation. He clearly doesn't think we should lead the world.
Nor do I.
Look, America is not perfect, but I stand with the majority of Americans who believe we are still exceptional, unparalleled. And I would
that makes me feel icky. If that, and I mean this genuinely, if that doesn't make you feel icky, let me know why. And I won't judge you. And I would ask other people in the chat to not be dicks as well. I just don't, why do we have to be exceptional? You know what I mean? Why can't we just be like a good nation that takes care of its people? I just don't, the obsession with being exceptional, I don't like it.
Rather have American over Chinese or Russian leadership any day of the week.
Why was I going to be fighting other people?
America has offered something better. Our security and our prosperity, yes, but our democracy, our very system of government, has been the aspiration of the world.
You think the world looks at art? Hey, world, in the chat, a lot of you are from other countries. Have you grown up looking at America and just being like, oh, I wish that was me?
And right now, it's at risk.
Sorry for that.
It's at risk when the president decides you can pick and choose what rules you want to follow, when he ignores court orders and the Constitution itself, or when elected leaders stand by and let it happen.
Sorry.
But it's also at risk when the president pits Americans against each other, when he demonizes those who are different and tells certain people they shouldn't be included. Because America is not just...
I wonder if she says more or if that's it. Because I would have liked as well if they just said in particular, like, hey, trans people. Hey, people from Central and South America. Hey, other groups currently being attacked and marginalized. See you. We got you. And we care. We are Lockheed Martin.
Just a patch of land between two oceans. We are more than that. Generations have fought and died to secure the fundamental rights that define us. Those rights and the fight for them make us who we are. We're a nation of strivers.
Then keep fighting, big boys.
Risk takers, innovators, and we are never satisfied. That is America's super.
I do find her accent charming, though. I'm not going to lie. You could basically say anything with a nice Michigan accent, and I'll find it charming.
Power.
We are not satisfied.
Look, I've lived and worked in many countries. I've seen democracies flicker out. I've seen what life is like when a government is rigged. You can't open a business without paying off a corrupt official. You can't criticize the guys in charge without getting a knock at the door in the middle of the night.
Why is she being so mean about Italians?
So as much as we need to make our government more responsive to our lives today, don't for one moment fool yourself that democracy isn't precious and worth saving. But how do we actually do that? I know a lot of you have been asking that question. First, don't tune out. It's easy to be exhausted, but America needs you now more than ever. If previous generations had not fought for this democracy, where would we be today? Second, hold your elected officials, including me, accountable. Watch
Okay.
how they're voting. Go to town halls and demand they take action. That's as American as apple pie. Third,
Is apple pie.
organize. Pick just one issue you're passionate about and engage. And doom scrolling doesn't count. Join a group that cares about your issue and act. And if you can't find one,
Oh,
start
got him.
some of the most
I'm joining a community theater and doing a production of King Lear at the retirement center to show people how I
important
feel.
movements in our history have come from the bottle up. In closing, we all know that our country is going through something right now.
We're
We're
going
not
through
sure
it,
what the
babe.
next day is going to hold, let alone the next decade. But this isn't the first time we've experienced significant and tumultuous change as a country.
No, it's pretty bad though.
I'm a student of history. And
Oh.
We've gone through periods of political instability before. And ultimately, we've chosen to keep changing this country for the better. But every single time, we've only gotten through those moments because of two things: engaged citizens and principled leaders. Engaged citizens who do a little bit more than they're used
I
to
was gonna
doing
say two
to
different
fight for the
things.
things that they care about.
Just the two
and
things.
principled leaders who are ready to receive the ball and do something about it. So thank you tonight for caring about your country. Just by watching, you qualify as engaged citizens. And I promise that
No.
I and my fellow Democrats will
No.
do everything in our power to be the principled leaders that you deserve. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Okay. You know, like boring. You know, it wasn't. I completely understand how you could watch something like that and be like, oh, hey, why not? That's good. Hey, sure. Didn't say a lot. Didn't have a lot going on there. Is someone's username Candace Owens Marxist body double? Holy crap. That's awesome. Have you been in the chat before, Candace Owens? um, Marxist body double? That is fantastic stuff. That is fantastic stuff. So something I wanted to watch really quick, and let's start this, and I think you guys could finish this on your own. This is from the American Prestige podcast. Daniel Bessner and Derek, they're going to say his last name here in a second. It's their podcast on U.S. foreign policy. Derek Davidson. They're two real academics, two professors, two big boys. Now, Danny Bessner, you've seen him on this show before. Probably, I don't know, Henry, would we say he's maybe one of the smartest people, if not the smartest person that's ever been on the show?
It was a pretty great interview. We've had some pretty smart people on the show. I'm not.
That's a
I'm
good
not.
point.
I'm
That's a good
not
point.
going
That's a
to
good
power
point,
rank
yeah.
them because I mean I like McManus a lot as well. And I don't-
Yeah, Matt McManus is smart as shit too.
Yeah.
And McManus and Bessner, I feel like they're like of a similar school of like a type of. They're similar types of smart guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And if either Danny or Matt ever watch this, I mean that in an incredibly complimentary way. I'm like
Let's get
jealous.
them. Let's get them back
all
on
the
for
time.
some phrenology. We'll look at their skulls and do all the.
Oh, boo, Henry, boo. I didn't. That was a Henry thing, not me. But they respond to a question from one of their, and I'm sure some of you, if you guys don't do this, by the way, let me go find the link to this because I want to share it in the chat because I would love for you guys, if you don't already, please do subscribe to American Prestige. They have a YouTube channel. As always, like if you want to let them know we sent you, that's cool. Like there's no kickback or whatever. It's just like, you know, but do check it out. Also, speaking of kickbacks, Yes Please Coffee for the second show in a row. I see my bag of Yes Please and I can't reach it. Guys, I've been depressed recently. I'll just be really honest with you. And this is like scientifically proven, a thing that does help me when I'm depressed is coffee. I drink more coffee when I'm depressed. I find it nice and comforting. I like the ritual of making coffee. I'm not saying you throw out your fucking Lexapro and replace it with Guatemalan beans. I'm just saying coffee's helpful. I drink Yes Please Coffee. They're our partner on the show. You get 20% off with the code Wisecrack. There's a link in the description. As simple as this. If you're a coffee nerd and you're a depressed coffee nerd and you're a depressed coffee nerd that fucks with this vision, check it out. Okay, let's watch. I want to watch a little bit of this because I think they get at a question that's really important. The question we're kind of framing the show around is, so after everything we just saw, we might be left with the question, well, what the fuck now? You know, like what are the options or possibilities for some type of organized resistance? How can we learn from historical example what we can do now? And they get at this. And again, subscribe to American
Hello,
Prestige.
Prestige heads, and welcome to American Prestige Q&A section where Derek and I answer all the questions that are too hot to print. This week, we
Ooh.
have gotten a question from 3 feds in a trench coat,
Hell
which
yeah.
is, of course, on our Discord. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the podcast and join the Discord. 3 feds in a trench coat asks,
Whoa.
What are Danny and Derek's thoughts on the failures of modern social and protest movements? The 60s and 70s saw substantial
Guys, I just wanted to say that Sean says that decaf coffee is made of dirt. Others have said that Yes Please coffee is made of ground up spiders. I don't think any of this is true.
legislation accompanying social movements, but I can't really name anything similar for a lot of the hashtag activist or street protest movements of the 10s, that is, the 2010s. Maybe in part because they were largely addressing abuses of power by police and Black Lives Matter, or behavior that was largely already illegal in the hashtag Me Too movement. The one thing I took away from If We Burn, that is Vincent Bevins' If We Burn, was that previous social movements were often backed by highly organized and large organizations, and that you could kind of bypass that requirement to get a modern movement going through social media. Is that mainly why these movements have largely failed to produce any broader structural change within society, or have been unable to fend off reactionaries
Man,
from
they have a
undoing
smart audience.
progress?
You guys are smart.
I forgot to add something about
but-
the crisis of liberalism, but I'm guessing maybe that plays a part. So, Derek,
Okay, so just to summarize, in case the question that their community member asked is, historically we see mass social movements that had a drastic effect on political life. Why don't we see that now? Is it because of a lack of large scale social organizations to facilitate those things?
thoughts, but why don't you start on
Why don't you go right into your
Danny cooks for like 15 minutes now. It's nuts.
thoughts, because this question seems to be right up your alley.
Okay, so first of all,
Derek Davison, I don't know where he teaches. He has a Pittsburgh hoodie on. I wonder if him and Maverick know each other,
I think that
because everyone in Pittsburgh hangs out.
Also,
challenging-
I'm a little protesting because this person misspelled my name, but that's beside the point.
Oh, I always thought it was Derick. I'll allow it.
Really?
I'll allow
It's
it.
written at the bottom of the
No, I
screen
know,
in
obviously. I
Zencaster.
did not think that. But
They
so I
have
think the
fun.
fundamental thing that when you look at the history of protest movements in the United States, and let's limit it to the United States as opposed to the entire Western world or global South or wherever, because I think each country has different histories, has different contexts that you can't easily just make broad blanket statements. But I think in the United States, you're going to have a problem if you challenge fundamentals of capitalism and fundamentals of imperialism.
Okay, just pausing there. Danny's first point. You have a problem in protest movements in America if you challenge the fundamentals of capitalism and fundamentals of imperialism. For example, in Slotkin's response we just saw, I know that she didn't say like imperialism and capitalism, the dream three-way that I want to have, like but she is going on Pornhub and typing in imperialism plus capitalism plus stepmom, because a lot of what she is saying about the fabric of America, right? I mean, when she says, I lived in these countries, I helped rebuild democracies, CIA, Iraq, that's imperialism, kids. That's what it is.
like you bring up her talk of exceptionalism. It's like, well, yeah, if America's the best in the world, it should be the one leading everyone else and unquestioned.
And that's the thing, too. I say this for any of my exceptionalism heads out there who are kind of like, I don't know, Michael, is it that bad to be like, hey, we live in this country and it rips? The issue is that sort of exceptionalism is what then feeds the project of imperialism. Because we are exceptional, we have the manifest destiny to go forth like this shining city on the hill, right? And then the capitalism thing, of course, is cooked into everything. So much of the rhetoric in at least the modern Democratic Party is baked or has capitalism baked into it. The discussion of like the middle class, the whole economic vision. And again, she shouted out Reagan, so I'm not being reckless here, is like trickle down neoliberal capitalism, and that the middle class works best when the big boys make money, but the big boys give us their change or something.
I think it's movement of the sort of classic civil rights movement of the mid 20th century, the long civil rights movement. I think that they were able to get broader agreement on certain issues related to emancipation, related to freedom, and they put their bodies and lives on the line. But one of the things that Martin Luther King Jr. was doing toward the end of his life before he was assassinated was that he was basically embracing explicit anti-imperialism when it came.
Okay, so MLK, a person that Democrats and Republicans alike love to talk about. Danny's pointing out he explicitly embraced anti-imperialism. And I'm not trying to pause too much here, guys, but I'm like, medium smart or something. Maybe not even that. But I sometimes need to pause and like take in what's being said. So I figure maybe y'all might as well.
Into the Vietnam. And he was also embracing the Poor People's Movement, the Poor People's March,
Look that one up if you haven't before.
and sort of really centering class in a particular way. And I guess we'll see with the files that are released or not by Trump. But one of the arguments that people have made over the course of history is that once MLK, after achieving the incredible gains of the civil rights movement, and I don't want um, to minimize those, like particularly what the great leaders and ordinary people did, and to end Jim Crow or help end Jim Crow, and really finally almost a century after, really a century after the Civil War, achieve a full, at least procedural emancipation. Obviously, we know there are social and economic inequities still. Is I don't want to underplay that. But critics have said, or not critics, but people have said that as he was moving towards an explicit anti-imperialism and an explicit, if not anti-capitalism, more socialist perspective, that was one of the reasons that he was perhaps, some have claimed, targeted by U.S. state forces.
Like the CIA and the FBI. I mean, I don't think it's super conspiratorial to say that there's reasons that, I mean, we know that the U.S. government and many leaders of the U.S. government were not big fans of MLK at a certain point. Wonder
So
why.
I think that one does have to appreciate that attacking the sinews of empire or the sinews of capitalism are going to be more difficult.
And I think it's important to remember that as well, that so many of the things that like we see from, let's say, like resistant Democrats boil down to like, hey, Trump and co and Republicans and peoples, we agree with 90% of your assumptions on how the economy and the military should function. We agree on that. We disagree on some of the operations that take place within that. We disagree on some of the more moral, ethical, religious propositions that you are using inside of that. But you'll often see, and again, in the Slotkin thing, right? When she's talking about Elon and she's like, and listen, I'm all for cuts. I'm all for efficiency. Notice when Democrats talk and they criticize the right, you'll often have moments like this where it's like, hey, we love strong borders. Hey, we want a strong military. Remember when Kamala Harris, remember when that happened? At the DNC was like, we want to make America the most lethal killing force in the fucking world. As Walz was just like, Gus, I love you. But it's true. Those are the two things that happen. She was like, we want to have a world historical killing machine. And Walz was like, I fucking love my beanball son. I don't know why I called him a beanball. It just felt like it made sense. But you know, a lot of we sometimes miss this, right? We miss that there is a complicity with imperialism and capitalism, even in the critiques that are being offered by the quote unquote resistance party.
I think we need to think about what was the actual response to the protest movements of the 60s and the 70s. And I'm going to focus on the protest movement about which I know the most, and that is the movement against the Vietnam War.
Shout out any draft dodgers in the chat.
And so, in some senses, I think you could point to the student movements, the anti-Vietnam War movements.
Yeah, Mav in the
as
chat said some have
being
claimed.
one of the several reasons that the United States, particularly under Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, decided that they really couldn't stay in that war, that they couldn't win that war. It was too much, it was engendering too much social dislocation, too much social chaos for them to do that, definitely. But I also think that those movements have been a bit romanticized.
And I do want to say, ooh, he's going to critique something I probably believe. Mav made a really good point. Shocking. We should do a drinking game where you have to drink every time I say, Mav made a good pointer, as Maverick says in the chatter. Ooh, what Chris said in the chat. But he says, honestly, a lot of the moderate middle mostly just disagrees with his tone. Yeah, that's a big issue as well. They care about tone more than anything else. And again, that's why some people didn't like Bernard Sanders, because they didn't like his tone.
No fundamental change to the rule book, just you got to read the rules and follow them better or respectfully or more dignified.
Be a good boys and good girls.
The popular imagine. I think particularly you see in the late 60s, early 70s, the movement did have an effect on the war. Particularly, it moves the focus of the American campaign away from boots on the ground, which had really defined the Vietnam War in the mid to late 1960s, towards more bombing campaigns, as well as an expansion of the war into Cambodia and Laos. And that was definitely due to the fact that Americans don't like seeing American men in particular coming home in body bags. And then the great achievement of the anti-Vietnam movement was really, I think, the ending of the draft, where Congress, I think that the actual procedural thing thing that happened was not that Congress actually did anything, but they just let the draft lapse, I believe. They didn't vote to reinstate.
Imagine if some of us had to get drafted, guys. We'd be cooked. Although, is anyone here been? I feel like we have some audience members who were in the military.
And that really was the great achievement of a movement, which, of course, that has the ironic consequence of
Sean
basically
Harriman, have a great
removing the
day.
bourgeoisie from fighting the United States' wars, which arguably, in the long term, from a long term perspective, you could say basically allowed the US empire to do what it wanted because it was able to do so now without genuine
Shout out to the ADHD gang in the chat.
political costs, without suffering mass casualties. And this, of course, happens in the early 1970s and is, I think, part of a larger process by which mass society begins to be replaced by a more individualistic, atomized society from the 1970s forward.
And that kind of like touches back on the point I mentioned earlier about political resistance needing to be a collective project and not a like individual identity lifestyle thing. And I do think like there is that shift, and there's that shift in culture overall after the 1970s. But we know how that affects us. You know, it's like fucking every Adam Curtis documentary gets at this. You know, Century of the Self. Ever heard of it? Go watch it. But the more we are atomized little individuals, we just become little brands, and our little brands do our little signifier things. But we don't have any power because power comes collectively, and power comes when we sort of sacrifice individual interest for collective interest. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, things of that nature.
So, what
I learned yesterday that Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote operas from my buddy Mike, who maybe is watching this. I know he watches sometimes. So now I want to learn about Rousseauian opera.
I would argue is that when the modern America, when it comes to, let's stick with foreign policy because this is a capacious question, but let's stick with foreign policy. When it comes to trying to understand why anti-imperialist, anti-war movements haven't been particularly effective in U.S. foreign policy, I think the thing that you have to turn to is the making of the modern American state in the 1940s. So I talk about this in my academic research, and
He just gets into it,
I'm
man.
thinking about it right now. But in effect, over the course of the early to mid 20th century, there were lots of discussions about what should the public's role be in policymaking, what should public opinion's role be in policymaking. And to make a very long story short, if you want to check this out, you should read my book, Democracy in Exile, where I go into it in depth, or this new volume on
I've not read his book, but it
liberalism I have
sounds
coming
good.
out, or this new essay I have coming out on imperialist realism. But in effect,
That
what
sounds really good.
happens is that there begins to be an elite consensus by the late 1930s that you really can't trust public opinion. Then there's two primary reasons for this. First, there's the
So elite consensus in the 1930s that you can't trust public
response to
opinion.
the Depression. There are bank runs, and in particular, I think labor militancy, which demonstrated to a lot of the emergent elite, even the New Deal elite, which was, I would say, more liberal than socialist, even though there were socialistic elements in that coalition, even communistic elements in that coalition, demonstrated to an emergent liberal elite that you couldn't really trust the public. But then also the rise of,
And it's so interesting he makes that point about the tendency in the 30s and the 40s, the shift to not trusting the public. The document that came out from the Democratic Retreat on Monday, again, I think I'm talking about this on Kat Abu's stream tomorrow, so come hang out, or as we're streaming tomorrow, Thursday, unless I get bumped for AOC. But a big part of that was saying like, we need to stop listening to small dollar donors. Like there's a sort of implicit anti-populism in there that we still see.
Nazism in Germany was read as an explicit function of mass politics. That Hitler was a cult of personality that had attracted a mass movement, and what this meant to American observers was that mass politics always had the potential to sort of degrade into authoritarianism or fascism. And you actually still see
Okay, so we turned the people into an object of fear.
that today. I think this has become a core feature of liberal ideology.
I mean, we still have that in our unconscious, like a movie like The Purge, that idea that the people themselves are always about to go crazy and do something bad and dumb.
The thing that I always point to is that I remember after Trump was elected in 2016, the New Yorker ran a cartoon of a guy standing up on a plane. He had a mustache. He was very clearly supposed to be a member of the quote unquote white working class that everyone was talking about a decade ago, saying, "Let me fly the plane. I know more than the pilot," which was basically like, oh, look at these idiots. Like the masses don't know what they're doing and they're going to sort of override expertise. And you still hear it today. Whenever you hear a liberal talk about the mob, what they're essentially saying is that they really don't trust mass democracy. So, how does this relate to our story? What
distrust of mass democracy cooked into our
I
system.
think happened was that after World War II,
Heard of
from
it?
my understanding, really was particularly after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and other American territories, was the public was on the side of fighting World War II. There was, of course, debates in the late 1930s and 1940 with the American First Committee, but after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and other territories, Americans are behind this war. What happens after World War II is that American elites pretty quickly transfer their anxieties about Nazism and Hitler onto Joseph Stalin and the Bolsheviks. And there had always been anti-communist strands in U.S. history going back to the 20s. I mean, Woodrow Wilson literally sends troops to fight in the Russian Civil War, but it didn't occupy the center of the American imagination that it did throughout the Cold War period. So American elites transfer their
I know I'm not pausing a lot. It's like I just got cured of ADHD.
anxieties onto the Soviet Union and Stalin, which, I mean, fair
But again, like I feel like the connective line here, right, is fear of the people leading to a fear of mass movements and populism, attaching that same fear onto the lingering World War II anxiety about Nazism to Stalinism and socialism, in the Eastern Bloc more generally.
not Stalin, not the greatest leader. He was a pretty oppressive guy. It's not so wild to understand why they did that. But they really wanted the American public to commit itself to this decades-long Cold War, and they weren't sure that the American
You could call them Cold War kids. You could call them that.
public could do that. If you look at this sort of writings in
Called
1945,
threading the
1946,
needle, guys.
1947, really to 1949, there's anxieties about
I
will
hate
the
myself
public
sometimes.
so soon after World War II commit itself to fighting a Cold War, not with any nation, but with a nation that had been a real ally, with a nation that had suffered by far.
Okay, so again, I know it's intense. He's saying a lot. I do want you. We're gonna wrap up in a second because I have to do a daycare run today. That's where I'm at as a person. That's where I'm at doing daycare runs. Fucking daddy daycare. I'm like a bad Adam Sandler movie come to life. Go watch the rest of this and pause it when you need to. Leave a comment and let them know that we sent you because they're the homies and we respect what they do. And we're gonna end the show early so you have time because I'm sure on your work calendar you already have Wisecrack live time blocked off. But the gist there, as far as I see everything thus far, I linked it hard, guys. I linked it hard. Is that there is a long history. And again, this makes me think of a thing we've been talking about ever since Frederick Jameson passed, RIP. Always historicize everything. Jameson wants to fight against that postmodern tendency of the eternal present by connecting things to history. A lot of us, when we talk about the failure of contemporary protest movements, I do this, keep it pretty present focused. Danny here is showing us how there is a line of anti-populism going back to the 1930s that sort of sets up the moment we're in now and explains this. Is it more difficult to understand some of this stuff than some of the easier answers? Absolutely. But when we understand these historical accounts, it gives us a much better grasp of what has happened, what is happening, and what could happen. So there's 10 minutes left of this. I'm gonna do another little link run. Go check it out. I think it's important and gets at some of those questions. We're gonna bounce for now, guys. We will see you all. What is the thing someone said? We'll see you all next week.
Yeah.
Can't wait. And guys, tomorrow go watch Cat's stream at 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern. There's other time zones as well, but I'm a coastal elite. I'm just kidding. I'm a man of the Great Lakes, so watch it at 2:30. And let's see, anything else? Video coming out about oligarchy and the Powell memo on Friday. I think you're going to dig it. Take care of yourself. Take care of those whom you love. You deserve a good lunch, so go eat it. We'll see you later.
See y'all.